Data protection and privacy teams are under more pressure than ever with new laws, AI oversight, data breaches, and the constant expectation to do more with fewer resources.
That's why TrustArc built a modern privacy and data protection management platform powered by Arc Intelligence. It unifies your tools, automates the work that slows you down, and surfaces what matters most right when you need it.
From guided quick actions to our intelligent assistant, Ask Arc, you get credible, contextual answers backed by expert research, not generic AI guesses.
Finally, privacy that works the way privacy pros work.
Learn how TrustArc helps teams move faster with confidence at trustarc.com/serious-privacy. That's trustarc.com/serious-privacy.
This is Serious Privacy. Here are your hosts, Paul Breitbart and Kay Royal.
From the parliamentary monsoon session in India to the Great Plains and the wonderful state of Oregon in the Pacific Northwest, this Week in Privacy episode, Kay and I will take you on a truly global tour around the world. My name is Paul Breitbart.
I'm Kay Royal, and welcome to Serious Privacy. So I'm excited about this week, Paul, because I haven't talked to you in a couple of weeks because I was on vacation.
You were on vacation. I was traveling before that, so it's been a while. It feels like we haven't met.
It's been a minute, right? It's been a minute. So let's go with unexpected question of the week. What was your favorite day this week?
The week isn't gone yet.
No, right? It's just Wednesday. For all of you who don't know, we typically record on Wednesdays. Then we try to release by the next Wednesday. Of course, y'all have gotten some of those emergency releases where something came out, usually earth-shattering, usually in Europe. And Paul reads and assesses it before I wake up. And then he's like, jump on a call. We got to record this and release it. And we'll release it the same or next day. Not the case this time.
No. Favorite day this week. Well, if you consider the week starting on Monday, then probably the Monday was my favorite day because it was one of the final 2 days for this academic year.
All right.
At Maastricht University. But if we can include the weekend, then Saturday was my favorite day of the week because the twin sister of one of my best friends got married.
Oh, congrats to her. That's fabulous. Weddings are so awesome.
Lovely beach wedding. We had absolutely lovely weather, which is not always the case in the Netherlands in summer, but this was 26 degrees Celsius, blue skies, a nice beach, a slight breeze, so sheer perfection.
Oh, that is amazing. Well, congrats to her. I wish them the very best. I love weddings. I've been through 3 of them myself.
Well, I actually had 2 other weddings on Saturday night, so I only could attend one. It was a bit of a mess. You have no weddings for 5 years, and then
bam.
The same day. But hey, that's the way it goes. So
it's the way it goes.
One of my colleagues at Katowiki got married to another friend of mine.
No.
I'm not involved in that in any way, but it's nice that a colleague and a friend got married, and then also a colleague from the university got married. So it's
wow. That's pretty cool. It's nice to see all the weddings when for so long over COVID, we heard about so many divorces.
Oh, I haven't, luckily enough.
Yeah. Divorce lawyers here in America were having a ball over COVID. Oh my gosh, it was crazy.
I mean, you can imagine if you're stuck in a 2-bedroom apartment or even a 1-bedroom apartment for the better part of 2 years that people start to go crazy.
Yeah, then you find out how much do you really enjoy being with this person 24/7.
Really like your privacy.
Right? I'd have to say that this week, my favorite day was probably Sunday. I'm going to go with that because last week I was on a Disney cruise with the grandkids, both their parents, one being my daughter's ex-stepmother, and my mom. And I have to say, I am over my need to ever go on another Disney cruise in my life. Done.
I can't imagine. It sounds exhausting.
It was exhausting, not to mention that on the first day of the cruise, my oldest grandson, he's 4, plowed into me and I tripped over an ottoman and knocked my head on a concrete floor. So I have a concussion.
Ouch.
And that wasn't fun. It was nice and quiet and the dogs were happy to have us back and it was good. But also, this is just a week in privacy where you and I can discuss just what has been developing around the world in the past couple of weeks that we should talk about. We pick up these stories from just about everywhere you can imagine. Friends alert us to these stories. We see them in the typical news cycles that come through, especially if they're breaches or something world shattering that's announced. We watch the IAPP. We watched TrustArc that comes up with theirs. Nimity puts out alerts. A lot of law firms put out their privacy alerts. So we don't know it all. Trust me, we don't know it all. We don't see it all. But we get our news from a lot of the same places you do, but it is exhausting sometimes to try to keep up with everything that is going on. I mean, one of the ones that I picked up this week was the Apple expansion of its protections for nudity detection to combat the child sexual, the child sexual abuse material. They just announced on June 5th. So not very recent, but not too long ago either. But they had some tools before that people didn't like, because then it means that they would ingest the nudity pictures and everything. But I think that was back in August of 2021. But now they have communication safety scans, and now it will scan it locally on the user's devices to determine the messaging that's there, or if there's any photos or videos to send, whether it's through the iPhone, contact posters, the photos picker tools, AirDrop, any of this, but it's on the device. So Apple itself is not ingesting it. The tool is downloaded on the device, and they're going to turn this communication safety tool on by default for all child accounts. Whenever there's a child under 13 in a family sharing plan, parents can go in and disable the plan, of course, but they'll do that. So this is one of their efforts to be able to help keep kids safe. More gaming companies have been getting in trouble for the messaging that's allowed within the gaming chats and things like that. And we know that there's a lot of abuse going on there. So I think this is a very positive step for Apple, and enjoyed seeing that development. So that's not something that is, this big breach happened.
I very much dislike this.
You dislike it.
Very much dislike it. I
because
think it's a very dangerous slippery slope. It is very intrusive, even if it's on device, scanning everybody's pictures in such a way. There is also a big legislative debate here in Europe going on for CSAM, so the Child Sexual Abuse Monitoring, where the European Parliament will vote in committee on that legislation tomorrow.
So you think it's intrusive if it's on a child's phone?
I think it's a very dangerous slippery slope, because if it's activated at one place, it's easily activated somewhere else. It's activated by default. So this is not a choice that parents have that to protect their child. This is a technology company imposing a technology without giving a lot of attention to it. It will just be switched on.
So taking that big brother approach.
Yeah, and I don't believe that is the way to deal with fundamental rights.
But they had an iCloud photo scanning tool. Now that I did not agree with at all.
That's even worse.
Right. I didn't agree with that one at all.
The whole principle of CSAM goes very much against what I stand for as a fundamental rights lawyer, despite the fact that in this case, it is for a good cause. But once the technology is there, what's next? And that is the very dangerous slippery slope that I see. But hey, we don't have to have this debate right now, because in a couple of weeks, we'll actually have two guests to discuss this topic.
Yes.
We've been doing also a lot of academic work on this. So stay tuned. Somewhere late July, early August, we'll have an episode on CSAM specific.
Which I am looking forward to, because maybe it's just my Southern roots, but I'm a little bit more protective. Maybe protective isn't the right word, conservative when it comes to this part on the side of protecting kids. But I can absolutely see the slippery slope that it goes towards. Absolutely. So I think that...
You don't hear me say that we shouldn't protect our children.
Right.
So let that be clear.
Yeah, let me be clear. Paul never said that. He never said that. He said this is a technology that has some scary aspects to it, that it could go much further than the good intent that it's planned for. Absolutely. So I think it will be a great debate, and I'm looking forward to that conversation. Maybe this will turn out to be another one where y'all, immediately convert me to the other perspective. I don't know. I think there's good points on both sides. If there weren't, it wouldn't be a debate.
Exactly. So we'll have that debate.
So I
what
appreciate
else is happening in the U.S.?
Oh, my goodness. In the U.S., we got all kinds of crazy stuff going on here. If you hadn't heard...
Any laws adopted?
In any new law, almost. Oregon passed it in both houses. It's headed to the governor. I haven't looked into the Oregon law yet. I know that if you missed it, Connecticut actually added health and children's data to its law. So some of the laws already passed, even though they're not in effect yet, are already strengthening some of the protections that they have. So the Oregon one follows it says the Washington Privacy Act variants. It applies to people that conduct business in Oregon or provide products or services to Oregon, control and process the personal data of 100,000 or more consumers, or the personal data of 25,000 or more consumers while deriving 25% of their revenue from selling personal data. There are no exemptions for nonprofit, and I'm not sure if there are exemptions for HIPAA. There's data level exemptions, but I don't think that it exempts HIPAA covered entities, which, as you've heard me say, I don't like that it exempts entities as opposed to data. I prefer it to exempt the data itself, not the entity as a whole. So like Colorado, it does not exempt nonprofits, although I'm sure like Colorado, it will take some enforcement discretion. But there's some very, very large nonprofits that handle a ton of data and significant data. They do have biometric data in there, sensitive data. They have the individual rights. All of these are absolutely standard that we expect it to. I'm looking to see how it defines sell. It is for money or other valuable considerations. So it has the standards there. So we're actually starting to see what we can call as some standards across state laws. You heard most of them there. So there are some things that we are considering standard, which even though they may differ in a lot of nuances, a lot of fundamentals are the same. So I do like that we are seeing some standardization across it, even though it seems like every state wants to take a new to the laws that it puts in place.
Some, right? That is the active word here.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So we have that. What else do we have? So the Texas Data Privacy and Security was signed by the governor. It's in effect July 1st, 2024. Was it over 100,000 Chat GPT accounts were stolen and sold on the dark web?
Wow, already.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fun. We should dig into that one a little bit more. TikTok has actually divulged that there is data that they have about American creators stored in China, whereas they had gone in front of Congress and denied that they did any of that. So either I think it was their CEO that testified in front of our Congress. So either he lied or he doesn't know. But regardless, they are now storing data in China, where they have been all along. So also we have a story out that the state attorneys general are supporting those strengthened HIPAA protections. We've talked about the comments were due. I think the date has passed now. There are the California Attorney General Rob Bonta and the New York Attorney General Letitia James are leading about half the states in calling for stronger federal protections for reproductive health. So they did assign a letter to the Biden administration supporting the amendments to HIPAA in the post-Roe world. So that's about half the states, and you got to know that they absolutely approached all the states. So that tells you of our divisiveness here in the United States, where we're going. So that'd be interesting to see that one come out as well. What about on your side of the pond? Before I go look and see what else we have here in the United States.
First of all, a bit further down in the world, in India, it seems that we may get some movement on the personal data protection bill.
Oh, fabulous.
And we've been saying that for quite a while.
Right.
At some point, we expected the legislation to be enforced in 2021. Then it became 2022. Now it's 2023, and it's still not there. But it has been announced that the data protection bill will be on the Indian Parliament's monsoon session agenda, and that starts on 17 July.
Oh, nice.
So there will at least be a legislative debate. Whether adoption is also on the cards, of course, as always, remains to be seen, because it has been on the agenda before, a data protection bill in India, and it was then pulled for disagreement. Slightly closer to home, we have new standard contractual clauses.
Saw that.
From the Council of Europe under Convention 108. So that is a big step. Also because, of course, as we know, Convention 108 is the first binding global instrument for data protection, with adoption well beyond the EU 27 countries. If they now also start working with standard contractual clauses, that might actually go a long way in also facilitating global cross-border data flows, and might actually be another reason for certain jurisdictions to come and join Convention 108, which also would be really good.
Yes. And Convention 108 is, because there may be people that are listening to us that don't understand what exactly Convention 108 is.
So Convention 108, we have an episode about it. It's the penultimate episode of season 2, I believe, explaining Convention 108 in full detail, together with the OECD privacy guidelines. But it is the Council of Europe Convention on the Automated Processing of Personal Data, dating back to 1981, with an update several years ago to Convention 108 Plus, which is now being ratified by countries around the world. And it's very similar to what you would see in the GDPR.
Right.
All countries could adhere to the Convention 108, and then by doing so state, hey, we take data protection and privacy seriously. They also commit then to implement a national data protection law that would meet the standards of Convention 108, because it doesn't have direct applicability. It's just an international treaty between countries. So it is slightly different from a legislation like the GDPR, which would have direct effect.
Very good. Very good.
So that about that one. Then we have 2 interesting finds from Sweden. One you already mentioned briefly in the episode with Jason Kronk, and that is the administrative fee that was imposed by the Swedish DPA on Spotify. 58 million Swedish kroner, which is about 6 million euros. Still interesting fine. And this actually goes back to one of the very first complaints issued by NOIB back in 2018 when the GDPR went into effect. So it took almost 5 years for this fine to be imposed.
Justice
is slow, and this was also probably quite a complex investigation. Also, the Swedish maybe did not really want to enforce in this case, but they were forced to, also under a court order. But the discussion here was, how does Spotify handle the right for individuals to access their personal data, individual rights requests? And whereas Spotify has a tool where you can download a lot of the information, it doesn't include all of the information that they should provide. For example, all the data is very technical that you can download, and it needs to be available also in a way that individuals can actually understand it.
Right.
When you file an access request, with also the explanation, also in your own language, not just in English. And for those reasons and quite a few others, the Swedish DPA imposed a fine.
Now, you have to imagine that over the course of 5 years, companies change their practices, or information that might be available to investigate may no longer be available.
Yeah, that's true. But at the same time, of course, if you are subject of an ongoing investigation,
you can't get rid of information.
It's implied, if not explicit, that you are not to delete the information that is under investigation. Changing your policies and procedures and improving your data protection standards is always fine. And that is also something that we see a lot during DPA investigations, which will then in the end also reduce the amount of a fine or make the slap on the wrist a little lighter, just because it is recognized that they have made an effort to meet the concerns of the DPA and the complainant.
Right.
So this week, the Swedish DPA imposed another fine, and this was a 13 million kroner fine, so about 1.3 million euros. To a news website called Bonnier News for profiling customers and website visitors without consent, and also trying to rely upon legitimate interests. Finally, I have not dug into this case in full detail. I did find a translation by now, but I also want to look through the Swedish version. But it's pretty long, and if we look at some of the summaries that are posted online, including one by Valle out of Norway, she actually explains that this is a decision based on an audit that came after an earlier audit that the Swedish DPA already did, and where no sanction was imposed. So the fact that you have been investigated once doesn't mean that you cannot be investigated twice. Always interesting. Also here, it took a long time because the last communication from the DPA with the data controller was in July 2020, and the draft report was not sent out until April of 2023. So, that's also quite a while. And apparently this also has some further discussion on what is to be considered as personal data, with the major conclusion, everything is personal data. Surprise, surprise, because everything can be identifiable. And apparently also some remarks are made on synthetic data sets that should be regarded as personal data. So I need to start looking into this in more detail. But in the meantime, his post on LinkedIn is really useful, and we'll link to that in the show notes.
Yep. Absolutely. So, one of the things, and I guess it is news, we're reading about it a lot. Do you know how long ago it was that Snowden made his leaks?
Of course, that's 10 years ago.
10 years ago.
So I spent the summer by his side, as they would say in Les Miserables, in the musical. Not really in person, but just with all the documentation. I was working for the Dutch DPA at the time. The data protection authorities were very much involved in the response to the Snowden revelations. And my commissioner was also part of one of the expert groups that the European Commission created at the time, which meant that I had to go through all the Snowden documents to actually analyze what the hell was going on there.
Right.
It was a good summer project. It took me off the streets that summer.
Yeah. Well, in case anyone is not familiar with the Edward Snowden leaks, he was a contractor for the U.S. National Security Agency. He was working in Hawaii at an underground lab, and he basically did whistleblowing on phone calls and recording and how information is shared there. Kicked off a lot of privacy conversations and review of laws and practices for the international surveillance, different things like that. Was quite
annulment of safe harbor and then privacy shield and negotiations like that.
This happened in 2013, and it basically kicked off, the United States biggest interest in privacy and what's happening. Now, a lot of people here in the U.S. still consider him a traitor. They still consider what he did as treasonous. I think he still has pending criminal charges if he was to return to the U.S., which tells you right now that he is not in the U.S. I believe he is still in Russia. Married, has kids now. I think he married an American. But has kids now and everything. And I heard a few months ago that he was starting to move around a little bit more, and you can still get interviews with him, just typically remotely. He's not going to go anywhere that has an extradition to the United States. So, or other countries who might not want to extradite him anyway. So it was very controversial, and it seems kind of interesting that it was only 10 years ago. At some point, it seems like it was just yesterday, but on the other hand, it seems like, gosh, wasn't that like many, many years ago?
Well, it was many, many moons ago, because the world has turned quite a lot ever since. I recall actually in the run-up to the Snowden revelations, the year before, the summer of 2012, we already had a similar scandal that everybody seems to have forgotten. The Washington Post released Top Secret America that year.
Yes.
Showing that tens of thousands of employees of the security services had top-level clearance without even being screened, without having the need to access those top-level documentation. And then the year after, the Snowden revelations came. So that a lot fell into place also at that time. Also why the fallout of that Washington Post series probably was so big, because there were so many, I will call them illegal programs going on behind the scenes in government surveillance in the US. And no, the US is not the only one. We've had that discussion before. But by whistleblowing at this scale, Snowden made a lot of things clear about also the very tight relation between big tech and the US government. And I think in the end, for privacy and data protection,
it was Verizon telephone calls, I think, were the source of.
That's one of them. Yeah, one of them. Certainly not the only one.
No.
But I think that was a very important whistleblowing statement that he made that has changed the world, I think, for the better.
Yes. And a lot of it was under the USA Patriot Act, which was passed in times of 9/11. It was passed hastily. Some people consider it the worst law that the U.S. has ever passed, given its impact and its tentacles into everything else. It was passed, again, hastily, as Paul and I have said. A lot of legislation is passed directly in response to something horrible happening. It gets people's passions and emotions up, and they react in order to protect. And yeah, there we go. But anyway,
Well, we've had quite a few whistleblowers on these topics
Yeah.
in recent years. I mean, also Chelsea Manning, obviously, the WikiLeaks page from
Yep.
Julian Assange, which also showed a lot of details on how the European deals with intelligence information and embassy information. But let's also not forget the original national security leak in the Pentagon Papers.
Yes.
Ellsberg, who passed away a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, that's right.
Also there, a lot of sudden transparency for things that the government may not have been too happy with.
And yet people are
also-
still not incredibly educated as to privacy rights and how companies violate them. I mean, even now, where almost every company has someone that is visible in privacy, maybe not in a lot of the small companies or just state-based ones, but in almost all global companies, there's going to be an awareness of privacy. If there's not an awareness of privacy, there's an awareness of the need for cybersecurity. They go hand in hand. There's very few cybersecurity laws out there. Almost all the cybersecurity requirements come from privacy data protection laws. But, people first look at, yes, we understand privacy, but someone's trying to hack us. So you focus on cybersecurity. That's natural. That no one's going to argue with that. That's natural.
Yeah.
You look at that. But if you're following the privacy laws and the restrictions, you may not have as much damage when you are hacked. And trust me, you're hacked at some level, at some place. Every company has a breach right now. It just depends on what's the level of that breach and what data do they have that they shouldn't have. And yeah, there's a lot of data that's hacked that is data you absolutely should have and you need to do your business, even if it's just ransomware at a hospital. If they can't access their systems to make sure the patients have the oxygen, there's a problem. And you absolutely need that medical data. So there is no easy solution to any of this. But even in light of all of that, it's amazing how little even people working in the global companies understand about privacy.
That's for sure. And at the same time, if we look at all those whistleblowing cases, whistleblowers are important and they do value our protection. But it always also makes for very interesting stories.
Yeah.
For the Pentagon Papers, there's this great movie, The Post, with Meryl Streep and Tom Hanks, I believe.
The worst decisions make the best stories.
Yeah, how that whole came about. For Snowden, his book Permanent Record, I read it a few years ago.
Yep, came out in 2019.
Insight, also gives a good insight in his considerations and how the whole trajectory went from reaching out to The Guardian and Laura Poitras, the movie maker, to get the documentary filmed in Hong Kong before moving to Russia.
And he did stay in Russia, let's be honest. He's been very upfront about his intention has never been to stay in Russia, but his attempts to move to other countries are generally thwarted by the actions of the United States.
Yeah, but apparently by now he does have a Russian passport because there is nowhere else he can go.
Yeah. He's there. He's there for all intent, and his kids were born there, so they're citizens. Dual citizenship, but citizens. But it's interesting when you look at this. And I mean, is there ever going to be a world where we're not going to worry about privacy violations or whether companies are doing the right things with data? I don't think so.
No, I agree that it will be really hard to have one.
But aren't you kind of sick of hearing people look at you and go, job security?
I mean, there is some truth to it. It's not the main driver for me to do what I want to do in this domain, because as I just told my students also earlier in the week, there is a reason why I stay with data protection, and that is because I really care about this fundamental right. And I know the same is true for you. So,
oh, absolutely. And it's crazy when there are people that are in privacy, data protection, cybersecurity, however you want to look at it, that are not passionate about it. They do it because they know how to do it, and it's a good paying job. But they're not passionate about protecting people's data.
I think that's fine. Not everybody can have the same passion.
Come on.
As long as they have a passion for something.
Well, that is true. That is true. But, I guess that's true of attorneys in general. I can't speak for non-attorney privacy officers because they come from a wide variety of backgrounds. But for attorneys in general, I can say that there are a lot of attorneys that are not passionate about what they do. A lot. And
I think that's probably true for most of contract lawyers, because I still don't understand how you can be passionate about a contract. I know there are some.
There are people that really get into it. They really, yeah. They're there.
And they may not understand why we are so passionate about privacy. So they maybe should listen more to the episodes of Serious Privacy. I would recommend that to everybody if you want to learn more about being passionate for this topic. So on that note, we'll wrap up another episode of Serious Privacy. If you like our episodes, do like and review in your favorite podcast app or platform. Join the conversation on LinkedIn. You'll find us as Serious Privacy. You'll find Kay on social media as Heart of Privacy, and myself as Europol B. Until next week, goodbye.
Bye, y'all.
That was Serious.
If you're a data protection or privacy professional, you already know the pressure. Non-stop regulatory change, AI oversight, internal demands, and the expectation to somehow stay ahead of it all. And the old patchwork of tools just isn't cutting it anymore.
No. That's why TrustArc created a modern privacy management platform powered by Arc Intelligence. The TrustArc platform brings your workflows, evidence, research, tasks, and applications all together in one unified and intelligent workspace so you don't waste time digging, clicking, or context switching.
With Ask Arc, your privacy assistant, you can ask plain language questions about laws, jurisdictions, or even your own program data, and get credible, cited answers based on NIMIDI research and more than 1,000 global laws. It's explainable, transparent, and purpose-built for data protection and privacy.
So if you need to add a vendor, create a cookie banner, or start an assessment, quick actions take formally complex tasks, turn them into bite-sized guided workflows to save you time.
It's a platform that thinks like you, works like you, and helps you move faster with confidence, whether you're a seasoned DPO or you're just getting started.
See how modern privacy gets done. Explore Arc at trustarc.com/serious-privacy. That's trustarc.com/serious-privacy.